Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, March 23rd. My name is Alan. I want to welcome you to my Spiritual Growth Through Recovery podcast. Purpose of these videos is to grow my spirituality by following the AA program for recovery. And I do this by being honest, vulnerable, and accountable, which is why I do these videos. All right. I am no expert in Alcoholics Anonymous, spirituality, or recovery. Just sharing my experience as I try to live life on life's terms and do that sober. Right. The recipe here is basically we start with reading the daily reading out of the AA Daily Reflections book. I share my take and then any other kind of else I'm going through, struggles, successes, gratitudes, that kind of thing. All right, let's get today's reading. The topic is "And No More Reservations," as well as a little bit on the 6-step readiness. All right. March 23rd, and no more reservations. We have seen the truth again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time, nor take the quantities some of us have. This is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn to the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 33. These words are underlined in my book. They are true for men and women alcoholics. On many occasions I've turned to this page and reflected on this passage. I need never fool myself by recalling my sometimes differing drinking patterns or by believing I am cured. I like to think that, if sobriety is God's gift to me, then my sober life is my gift to God. I hope God is as happy with his gift as I am with mine. All right. So I guess what kind of jumped out to me is, if we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind. I always think back about the first step. And where I tend to struggle the most is there's no doubt in my mind that I'm powerless over alcohol and drugs. But where I still think it's manageable sometimes. Or I get the screw it, I don't care attitude. When life gets too much, life feels too painful, I'm almost willing to take the consequences of my using as opposed to living life on life's terms. So the powerless part, I know I'm powerless. I almost don't care, or I think I can manage just enough to not have my whole life crumble. And the reality is, I've been able to pull that off for a long time. My life is, on the outside, really good. And even look at my life, I think it's good. But it's teetering, right? My job, my relationships, my own sanity. So that's kind of where I struggle the most on that. And, for me, I was a drug addict the very moment I touched alcohol. I think I was 13 or so, babysitting my cousins, found a pint of vodka, and I mixed it with this juice concentrate called Five Alive. And man, I ended up puking all over the place. But at that moment, no matter how sick I got, no matter how much I felt the next day, man, I was triggered. The moment I drank it, I was an alcoholic. Now, obviously, this applies to me with alcohol and drugs, both of those. So, just got to make sure I don't think it's going to be okay to use again or plan to use again. Because at some point in time, well, maybe if I do this or no one's around or whatever. So I just got to make sure I'm not doing those things. I got to be convinced, right? And I am convinced. All right. The next thing I just want to talk about was, kind of a little bit in the AA 12 by 12 book, where I'm at in the 6th step. Some parts that have jumped out to me as I'm kind of, becoming ready. So step 6 is we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Once again, these are defects of character that were identified by doing the 4th and 5th step, all right? And so some of the lines, the first line here is, this is a step that separates the men from the boys. Any person capable of enough willingness and honesty to try repeating step 6 and all his faults without any reservations. Interesting. We just read in the Daily Reflections, talked about no reservations. And once again, in step 6, it talks about no reservations. So without any reservations, whatever, has indeed come a long way spiritually, and is therefore entitled to become a man who is sincerely trying to grow in the image and likeness of his own creator. That sounds like an interesting goal. Am I really willing? No matter what, just all in, all right? And as I look through this, there are reservations, obviously, right? Because some of these behaviors and character elements, I find value in them, right? And so it's a little hard for me to let those go. So in the next page, 64, it says, define their instinctive desire for self-preservation. They seem bent upon self-destruction. And that's what I do with my using. Everything starts to crumble, right? And it's through humility that my obsession is lifted. If I've been beaten down enough, and there's a part of me that is concerned that I've not been beaten down enough this time. I haven't hit my bottoms are high. It's all emotional. The external stuff hasn't been affected that much. So that's some concerns for me. And then I think the next part here was on 65. It says, we often let these, since most of us are born with an abundance of natural desires, isn't it strange that we often let these far exceed their intended purpose? And I guess when they drive us blindly, or we willfully demand that they supply us with more satisfaction or pleasures than are possible or due us, that is the point at which we depart from the degree of perfection that God wishes for us here on earth. That is the measure of our character defects, or if you wish, our sins. And I've looked back at sex, money, food, drugs, more. I've heard people talk about this drug as a disease of moreism. And this definitely applies to me. Whenever I want more of something, and maybe that's an indicator that that's somewhere I need to back off of. And that's hard, because when I'm using and I just have this one vice, I tend to be okay with the rest of them. But when I lose that one, then I find myself reaching for multiple things to fill that void, which is an endless wasteful effort, really. So and that's kind of where I'm at with step 6. Just want to share a little bit of that. I'll probably share kind of a little bit more of the next reading as well, just to because there's some, I'm right. I want to move on from step 6 to step 7. So anyway, I want to encourage you again today to if you have any debates or any uncertainty whether you really are an alcoholic or a drug addict, I don't know. Hopefully you can come to a conclusion that you are convinced and you're done. And if not, I guess what the book says, go try it and see if you're still an alcoholic or not. Ultimately, I hope you enjoy your day. If you're like me, the week is wrapping up. I'm going to be headed out of town this weekend and looking forward to that. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and be back here again tomorrow.